For the last few days, Bitcoin has been finding support on that 16K level, but we are by no means at all, as per the title of this video, out of the woods for a drop further down, similar to what we saw in 2018. As you guys would know, we followed a 2018 drop pattern that I'll explain in this video quite clearly and quite directly in this drop downwards recently over the last week, and we're still in the midst of that fractal. We could very well go further down on Bitcoin, and if we do, there is a dramatic amount of evidence to suggest where that will be. We have to look into quite a few things today regarding that. First and foremost, I want to start out this video by saying there is support where we are now, okay? If we go to the daily chart, and people don't really realize this, but if we go to the daily chart and we look historically at what we're doing and where the price level actually is, we can see that around that level that we found support on 15.6K-ish, there is support. Look, we touched that level, we zoom backwards there on the daily chart, we can see that was a level that we have tested before, we have held that level as resistance before. When we did break it, we came upwards, we saw a resistance support flip, right? As you can see, bang, rejection, resistance support flip, and then we went upwards. So we are in support right now. So this level we've held, this level we're touching right now, can't just be thrown out the window. We can't just disregard it, right? It is there, it is a support level, and it is a potential bottom. Even if we go to the weekly chart, for example, we can see at the weekly candle close during this drop, which was up here at around 16.2K, right? That was actually the rejection point after the high in 2018. So we came up, we formed the high, we came back down, rejected off of that. That gave us momentum to move further downwards in 2018, 2017. So, you know, again, we do have support here. It is worth considering. And, you know, that's another support flip there from the weekly candle. It is worth considering the support of this level. But the problem is this, okay? And I'm going to get into, you know, why I'm a little bit skeptical about Bitcoin bottoming out in this region right now. I do think it's possible, but I'm a little bit skeptical about it. Here's why. The first reason is this. We formed a very similar pattern to what we saw in 2018 before this drop, okay? We had a horizontal support line, I'm going to list it out in 2018, horizontal support line, and we kind of formed some sort of descending triangle formation, something like that, okay? Rejected off the triangle various times over the course of months, and eventually we finally dropped down, right? And we saw a quick drop, a sharp drop, a sudden drop downwards, and we bottomed out quite low, quite a lot lower, around 50% lower than where the drop came from, okay? Now, we did a very similar thing, okay? We had a horizontal support, right? Or roughly horizontal at least. It was at least similar, something like that, you know, pretty vaguely horizontal support zone. And again, just like 2018, that support actually stemmed back to before the bull run. Okay, if we're looking at what we've done now, that support zone did, you know, it stemmed back to before the bull run. We could see some contention around it there. And we finally dropped down. We saw a weekly candle close below it. And again, it was kind of like, you know, a similar kind of descending triangle structure. It doesn't line up quite as flush, but the point is, it's similar. Okay, I'm not saying it's the same. I'm saying it's similar, right? So we saw the same thing. Right, and obviously during 2018, we saw a 50% drop. Currently, we haven't dropped 50% by any means. We've dropped down, you know, say 16%, which is nowhere near what we did in 2018. And so you could even just based off that say, okay, well, we could go lower. And, you know, that's of course true. We could go lower, but people don't like hearing coulds. People don't like hearing about, oh, what could happen. They want to hear what's going to happen. All right, so that's where I kind of get into what will, you know, I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can tell you what's likely to happen at this point. I think it's more likely to go down further. You know, there are more similarities than just that. And you look at, for example, I brought up this chart here, which is the seller exhaustion constant on Bitcoin. Okay, generally, you know, it means high volatility plus high losses. You can see low volatility plus high losses. And we reached this level of seller exhaustion, you know, on 7 separate occasions in Bitcoin's entire price history. Now, on 6 of those occasions, it's actually led to a bounce. So on 6 of the 7 occasions we've seen this seller exhaustion constant reach this level, it's led to a bounce. The problem is the one time it led to a sharp drop was 2018. And of course, the price action right now is resembling 2018 quite clearly, quite perfectly actually. We've also got bull market support band. It's formed a similar thing in 2018. We saw a rejection off the bull market support band just a week before we started going downwards, right? Same thing right now. Rejection off the bull market support band just a week before we started going downwards dramatically. You know, this goes without saying, I've said it over and over again now already in this video. We're in a similar pattern to our in 2018. And the thing is this, okay? The thing is this. People would say, if we're in a similar pattern to what we were in 2018, we should go further down. And I agree with them. The thing is, we're still doing exactly what we did in 2018 right now, even though we're kind of on support consolidating right now. Because look at 2018, look what happened, okay? We found that during this massive drop, we had a bit of period of time, about a week about a week we had here in 2018 where we actually found support on a level that was very similar to the one we're finding on support now. It was a level of contention that we saw here in 2017. If we went to the daily chart, you can see that come up as a level of contention, okay? So we could be doing right now what we did in 2018, in which we have this little, pause of volatility during the big drop. Now, this was a little over halfway through the drop in 2018, so we saw a drop from the horizontal support of around 30%. We then saw that 1 week of calmness, and then we went down and dropped down a further 20%. So relative to percentages, right now we've dropped down, what have we dropped down from a horizontal support? Around 16, 15%. Okay, we should, relative to percentages, drop down another 7% roughly, okay? 7 or 8%. And that coincidentally, actually no, 15, yeah, 2/3 of 15, it would actually be a 10% drop, sorry. And that coincidentally brings us down to 13.8K, or, not so coincidentally, depending on how you look at it. So relative to percentages, if we're assuming that this little dip in volatility here, this little lower volatility is the same as this low in volatility we saw during the 2018 drop, relative to percentages, we should be seeing next week be quite bearish, and we should be seeing next week pretty much mark the bottom for Bitcoin at around the 10% mark, which is 13.8K. Guess what? 13.8K, you guys know this by now, lines up to be a very strong weekly candle support zone on the Bitcoin macro scale, okay? I'm going to make it pink. I'm going to make it a pink line. 13.8K, very strong weekly candle support zone on the Bitcoin macro scale, okay? Another strong zone that is a little bit, we should be considering is 11.5K, but that's relevant to another video. At this point in time, we're looking at 13.8K, okay? Now, it gets more interesting than that, because, okay, so just to clarify, based on the 2018 fractal, based on the 2018 drop, assuming we're seeing the same thing we saw in 2018, which is a reasonable assumption to make, we will be going further down, okay? I'm not saying that that's, certain. It's certainly not. We do have support right here, as you guys know. The point is, that is what is likely based on the 2018 fractal. We will be going further down, and it will likely be next week we start doing that, okay? Now, this gets more interesting, okay? It gets more interesting because of this. This is the reason why. I want to briefly interrupt this video to talk about the BitGet exchange. Now, the BitGet exchange has 5 times lower fees than Binance, which is commonly referred to as the cheapest exchange in the cryptocurrency market. It's also non-KYC or voluntarily KYC, so you can stay true to the fundamental values of cryptocurrency, one of which being anonymity, of course. It's also got a security fund in there, so if you lose your funds by fault of the exchange or by personal fault, you can make a claim and actually retrieve your funds back. On top of all of this, if you sign up using my referral link, you can get access to exclusive discounts and rewards. This is the best exchange on the cryptocurrency market, and I use it personally, and so should everyone at the Wolves of Crypto YouTube channel. Now, if you're interested in actually learning how to trade for yourself, you can check out the Crypto Academy via the website link in the description below. This is a course developed by myself and Megaworld Crypto, a 10-unit course taking you through every single step from step 1 to step infinite about how to become a trader. Go ahead and check that out and chuck us an email at cryptoacademycourses@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you with the full information and payment information if you're interested. Thanks, guys, for watching the advertisements. Let's get back into the video. And this is obviously getting a little bit into speculative territory here, but look at what's happened, over the last few years on Bitcoin. Okay, in 2018, we bottomed out on the 200-week SMA. Okay, in 2020, during the COVID drop, we bottomed out on the 300-week SMA. Okay, now we bring up the 400-week SMA, and you can see the pattern there. 200-week SMA bottomed out in 2018. 300-week SMA bottomed out in 2020. 400-week SMA bottomed out in 2022. Not only is the interval of the SMA increasing by 100 each time, but it's also happening over a 2-year period. So assuming we go down to 13.8K, which is what the 2018 fractal suggests, and also what basic TA tends to suggest, right? 13.8K is a very strong support zone. We would be seeing a bottom out on the 400-week SMA. That means, again, 2018 was 200, 2020 was 300, 2022 was 400. That would be very interesting. The point is, there is a strong support zone at the 400-week SMA based on horizontal support, and also the 400-week SMA itself is at 13.8K. So, just to clarify what we've said in this video, very similar thing to what we're seeing in 2018, we're seeing now. We seem to be around 2/3 through the drop. If we were to follow the same percentage-based drop from the little dip of volatility we had in 2018, we would go down to 13.8K. 13.8K is a strong horizontal support zone, and we do have a potential trend lining up with the 200-week, 300-week, and 400-week SMA. That lines up with the 13.8K bottom. So I would say on Bitcoin, and this is something I've said even before this video, I would say on Bitcoin, and this is my general opinion on Bitcoin, to just clarify, I believe in the four-year cycle bottom. I believe the bottom will be in Q4. I don't necessarily care where the price would be. I don't necessarily know where the price would be. If I had to guess, I've said the price, and this is something you can go back in time and test me on, other than probably a couple weeks before a drop, we had a bit of a shift in opinion there. But basically, throughout the entirety of my prediction, I've said ever since we reached this level of horizontal support at 18.5k, so ever since June, I kind of said the most likely scenario for Bitcoin, in my opinion, is we bottom out between 11.5k to 13.8k. 13.8k is the upper end of that range, and there is evidence suggesting we bottom out there now. So we're going to have to see what happens on Bitcoin. According to this fractal, it will start to play out within the next week. It will be interesting to see what happens. I don't want people, even with this whole video made, even with all of this said, I don't want people to just toss the potential of a 15.6k bottom out the window. It is worth noting that, we saw the second largest exchange in cryptocurrency market collapse. That brought us down to 15.6k. There is an argument to be made that if the second largest cryptocurrency exchange collapsing brings us down to 15.6k, what could take us lower? Is that not the final capitulation event? There is an argument there. I can see that argument. I still think the most likely bottom is 13.8k. Our buying plan has reflected that quite clearly. Right, I have a buying plan on Bitcoin. Short term is quite boring right now. There's no point to even look at it. The buying plan is quite clear, and I have kind of spoken about this buying plan a lot over the course of the last few months. Now I have shifted it a lot. That's for sure. I have shifted this buying plan a lot. I've adapted to the situations, but this is where it stands currently. We had a 50% buy on Bitcoin between 17 and 18k. So we have bought 50% at 17 to 18k, and we will buy 50% at either a touch of 13.8k to 11.5k, or if we close a weekly candle above the bull market support band. This means that we are covered in both scenarios. Even if we are wrong, and even if we don't go down to 13.8k, we will be buying when we get above that bull market support band on the weekly chart, which has historically led to higher prices on Bitcoin and historically led to a confirmation that the bottom is in. That is currently at 21k. Okay, by the time we get there, if we do get there, it will most likely be a lot down, further down than that. And so regardless of what happens here, we're going to get a good average price on Bitcoin. Obviously, if, the data does shift, obviously if the TA does shift, and we stop following that 2018 fractal and we go sideways for a couple of weeks here, I'd start to think that, hey, maybe 15.6k was actually the bottom. But at this point in time, as per the title, I don't think we're out of the woods for Bitcoin yet. I don't think that this capitulation event is over. I think this is a pause in the capitulation. And I do see it as pretty likely that we go down further on Bitcoin here. Again, if the data changes, I will be the first to adapt to that. But at this point in time, I simply don't see how the data has changed. Even looking at the short-term chart, even looking at the hourly chart on Bitcoin, sorry about that line there. What we're forming right now really is a bearish pennant formation. Bearish pennant formations are not good. If it breaks to the upside, again, change my prediction for sure. But as of right now, it does look like downwards is the most likely option. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow in the next video. Hopefully there's been some developments by then in the short term. And I'll see you then. Thanks, guys.